It's Friday, the 20th of March, 2026. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1, the National Cabinet has established a task force to coordinate the distribution of fuel to areas of need and has raised the prospect as well of rationing if the Middle East conflict drags on. On that, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese questioned whether there was any need for the US and Israel to continue hostilities against Iran, given that the objective of denying Iran the ability to develop nuclear weapons has been achieved. The PM was critical as well of Iran's unprovoked attacks on Gulf states, attacks which are disrupting oil and increasingly gas supplies as well, Sean.
Also yesterday, Albanese nominated Anthea Harris, the former head of the Australian Energy Regulator, to be the head of a fuel task force. Each state and territory will have a representative on that. He said there were more measures coming to address broader supply chain issues and called on drivers not to take more fuel than necessary. Before the meeting, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns said contingencies for fuel rationing would be discussed. It certainly has hurt the share market. The S&P ASX 200 closed down 1.7% yesterday to under 8,500 points.
And as the meeting progressed yesterday, Sean, the competition watchdog announced an investigation into allegations of anti-competitive behaviour by major fuel suppliers Ampol, BP, Mobil and Viva Energy.
Chair of the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, Gina Cass-Gottlieb, said the agency had received reports about concerning behaviour relating to diesel availability to independent wholesalers and distributors servicing regional and rural Australia. She said the ACCC doesn't normally publicly announce investigations, but given the significance of the issue, this time they did.
Indeed. Story number 2, the economy added nearly 49,000 jobs last month, Sean, but the unemployment rate rose to 4.3% as more people looked for work. The participation rate of the labour market, which is the share of people in a job or looking for work, jumped to 66.9%. And while in January there was a surge in full-time jobs and a drop in part-time roles, it was the opposite in February.
Totally. Part-time employment rose 79,000 while full-time employment was down 30,000. The Bureau of Statistics said there was a particularly sharp increase in part-time employment among those aged 65 and over, and fewer people than normal retired. Not hard to extrapolate that to say older Australians are finding times tough. Employment numbers jump around a bit. The rule of thumb is to keep an eye on the unemployment rate, 4.3%, still well below what the Reserve Bank thinks is needed for the labour market to be kind of in equilibrium. They reckon it should be about 4.6%. That means at 4.3%, there are still inflationary pressures coming through. Notwithstanding that, the labour market does look to be in a pretty good place at the moment, and certainly not a reason for the Reserve Bank to not hike interest rates.
Story number 3, international airfares are on the rise, with the head of Qantas International warning that they could end up much higher as the carrier reviews ticket prices at least once a fortnight. Speaking at the Destination Australia Tourism Conference, Cam Wallace said that costs had risen more quickly in the past few weeks than he had ever experienced in his aviation career.
And Cam has been in the industry for a while, I've got to tell you. Prices at this point are only up 5% at the national carrier. But given jet fuel prices are up 150%, flights on European routes are more than 90% full, well, you can imagine prices are likely to rise more. It came as Tourism Australia research showed that more than 80% of operators have said they've had bookings cancelled in recent weeks, and half of that is based on the war. Fuel accounts for about 1/4 of expenses of carriers, and airlines around the world are starting to introduce these fuel surcharges to cover the higher costs. I'm afraid it's something we're going to have to live with for a little while now.
Indeed. Story number 4, Sean. The city housing the world's largest gas export plant in Qatar has been targeted in the war in the Middle East. Rafah Industrial City was the subject of missile attacks that came as Israel and the US bombed a key Iranian gas field. It triggered a surge in oil and gas prices and also a bit of a split between the US and Israel. US President Donald Trump distanced himself from the Israeli attack in Iran and said no further attacks of that nature would take place. He then said the US would destroy Iran's South Pars gas field if the country continues striking the energy infrastructure of its Middle Eastern neighbours.
I mean, it's a bit of a mess at the moment, it really is, and we don't know where it's going. Qatar's foreign ministry said Iran had now crossed all red lines, attacking civilian infrastructure in Qatar, UAE and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia reserved the right to take military action if necessary following attacks on Gulf countries, while vessels near the Strait of Hormuz have also been attacked, so not in the Strait of Hormuz, near the Strait of Hormuz. A report suggests the Trump administration is considering deploying thousands of troops to the Middle East as the US decides what to do next.
Can we lighten things up a little bit for story number 5? The Australian has released its list of richest people, and for the first time in 8 years, the combined wealth of the top 250 Aussies has fallen.
$25 billion, Michael. Mostly because the value of Mike Cannon-Brookes and Scott Farquhar, those two Atlassian fellas, down $35 billion. That's because the share price of Atlassian is down more than 50% since a year ago. They were 4 and 5 on the list, now 12 and 13. Gina Reinhardt, iron ore, number 1. 93-year-old Harry Triggerboff, number 2. Then cardboard box manufacturer king, Visy Industries, Anthony Pratt. Following him, Clive Palmer, Canva duo Melanie Perkins, Cliff Obrecht, Nicola Forrest, former wife of Fortescue's Andrew Forrest, is at 7. Her former husband, Andrew, is at 8. But there are 2 newcomers to the top 10. One at number 9 is Wall Street infrastructure guru Mike Durrell, and at 10, media baron turned mining services and building materials magnate Kerry Stokes.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
It is Friday, the 20th of March, 2026. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.